Hello, everybody. This is a question that actually I've been confronted with lately much more often, and I'll show you some examples why. Just before I do that, just tell you a bit like where I come from and what we do and why I'm kind of very busy finding out this difference between wise and stupid. Is we as Synthetron, we have this crowdsourcing platform. We actually crowdsource insights, intelligence, by engaging large groups of people in an online dialogue of 1 hour. So very, could be 1,000 people, could be 100 people. It's been used basically a lot in the civics part, where it's about citizens' participation, but dominantly in organizations to crowdsource internally on different topics. How it works is done probably a 2-minute video, and then you know where I come from. Can we get the video? Yep.
You have a responsibility to steer your organisation, but without knowing what people are really thinking, how can you take the right actions? It's like flying blind. Wouldn't it be great to have some honest feedback straight from the source that gave you the full picture and helps you make the right decisions? Synthetron does this for you by capturing the most important authentic opinions and ideas of the people that matter to your organisation via a process we call evolutionary crowdsourcing. Participants discuss your key subjects in a real-time conversation from the comfort of their own computers or tablets. It's as easy for them as sending an instant message or a text. We know how to get the best feedback and ideas out of a social brainstorm, and you need to include everybody who matters. Of course, lots of people generate lots of ideas and opinions, so how do you pick out the best and most useful from all the noise? Synthetron brings together up to 1,000 participants in small overlapping groups, all contributing their best ideas and most honest opinions in a safe, anonymous environment. Ideas are filtered by the participants themselves when they rank each other's comments. Synthetron uses a clever algorithm behind the scenes to allow ideas that get support in their initial group to be seen by more people. That's the moment when the statement becomes a synthetron. The stronger comments and ideas spread to a bigger audience and gather momentum, just like a really funny joke quickly spreads between friends. The conversation is done in an hour, and what do you get at the end of it? You get a short list of the strongest ideas and opinions, something that will get you thinking straight away. You also get a longer list of all the synthetrons so you can see the whole span of the conversation, and a deeper analysis of the whole discussion to turn the insights into actions. Synthetron will help you listen to your audience, engage with their thoughts and opinions, and gain feedback that enables you to make the right decisions. Synthetron, crowdsourcing insightful actions.
You've seen already part of our thinking about how to get the wisdom out of the crowd, but let me start about why we have this question. The question before was, get the wisdom out of the noise. The question today is, hey, avoid a stupid crowd. And avoiding a stupid crowd is becoming recently extremely popular to be said, and this was one of the instances, this is the other instance. And I'm not sure we can talk about the stupid crowd here. It's only history will tell us whether it was stupid. But what we know for sure, that the conditions for the crowd were not ideal. The information was bogus and not transparent and not... but there was more going on. I think the most stupid thing, which was definitely stupid, was the polling industry and the expectations of many parties. And behind that stupidity are a few very important falses. One is a psychological bias that when you say, well, are you going to vote for Clinton or for Trump? The politically correct answer is probably Clinton, and people just do like to politically correctly answer and behave differently, and that bias wasn't taken into account. The other one is that a lot of these data were numbers which were looked upon, and they were looked upon with another pair of glasses of biases, which is if you want to see something and you look for a certain part in that data, you get it. You look only at that, and you don't look at the whole data set. And there's a lot of articles around that now explaining these biases. Now, what I'm actually saying here is that groups, in order to be intelligent or in order to get intelligence out of groups, you need to avoid a lot of traps of psychological biases. And they're basically to do with fast thinking, slow thinking, with the whole knowledge we know, and we know a lot what can happen wrong. And there's a whole list, I think, of 50 different and 10 classified type of biases. Well, if you deal with groups, you need to know them because you need to avoid them. The other one is actually this story. This is a ship which is, the UK government was very proud to have this ship which was sent up, or is going to be sent up, or is now released, is going to the polar research, doing research in the polar circles. The ship didn't have a name, so somebody said, oh, let's have a name. The crowd was very wise, getting a name. This was the name they came up with. 150,000 votes it got. The next name, which was a serious name, got 20,000 votes. What happened here is not so much stupidity or wiseness of the crowd. Actually, the context was a context of gaming. So gamification can help, but gaming and gamification can also lead to a lack of critical thinking, which is clearly what happened here. The other example I'm going to give you, and it's actually a Dutch example. It's 17th century. It's a fantastic story, but which is called the tulip mania. In the 17th century, the first tulips came out of Turkey into the Netherlands. In the Netherlands, they just realized that and they're still experts in tulips, with a few seeds, you can actually grow a tulip, but it takes 7 years. So you see, it's a future market of tulips. And tulips, if they are combined with certain conditions, they actually become not red tulips plain like that, but they become even more sophisticated and have different colors. Now, out of that became what we call in economics snob effect. People wanted to have a tulip. It was a very distinguished thing to have. Dutch being Dutch, they created a future market around it, the whole exchange, and there was a whole market around tulips and buying tulips for the future, where at a certain moment a tulip bulb was worth as much as one house on the canals in Amsterdam. So it was a classical bubble where everyone just moved into this, and it's the example of groupthink. It's a sample of just repeating, not being critical, and just reinforcing certain things, which actually typically happened there. I'm going to give you another one, which is probably a bit at the root. This is about my own experience. When I went to Leuven University, and some people around here were there with me, I wasn't in '68, luckily I'm not that old, but I wanted to kind of the '68 romantic thing, so we went to kind of demonstrations and things like that. In Leuven University, the streets have slopes, so at a certain moment you are in one of those demonstrations and slope down, and suddenly these crowds start running, and you run with them, and then it stops, and it's a lot of fun, it's a lot of excitement. But suddenly I realized myself, I was running, not because I decided it, not because I was not even observing myself, it just happened. And what happened is that, and it's a very important one, that I didn't take any individual responsibility. I just delegated everything to the bigger crowd. And ever since, you will never see me in the middle of a crowd anymore, because it just happens. That is actually one of the important things, is that crowds tend to reinforce that. And so avoiding this individuality is actually pretty important. And the last one, Belgium again, not very proud about it, but there are examples in Berlin, there are examples in the UK with music festivals and all that. This is a drama, we call it the Hazel drama. It was a soccer competition between Juventus and Liverpool, which we hosted in, I think it's '87 or something like that. And at a certain moment, one mob of Liverpool fans tried to move and trespass the Italians. The whole thing was a real drama. 39 people died. So this is what mobs can do. Mobs can not only be intellectually stupid, they can physically stupid. And there's one story here, and if some of you read the little book I think we can learn from nature. And this is the story which is a grasshopper story. This green little guy is called Solitary. It's a grasshopper, Locutus, or the name is not on there, but Locutus, and it's a grasshopper who usually is very solitary, shy. But whenever there is drought, all these grasshoppers come together where there are actually still green leaves. And they are getting crowded. And they are physically, and they found out it's because the grasshoppers are touching each other, something happens in the brain, and the grasshopper makes a metamorphose, and it becomes this aggressive, sworn type of, and it's called a gregarious grasshopper. What it tells us, and then you get these swarms of grasshoppers, but it's the same thing as my mob. It's density. It's when there are too many people close to each other and there are emotions engaged. In the grasshopper's case, is fear of having food. In the football, it's fear and hope or emotions of will beat them. Then crowds can actually be very, very stupid. So psychological bias to avoid, getting the right context, avoid groupthink, make sure that there is individual critical thinking, and manage emotions. These are quite a lot of conditions to manage. You can actually manage that. But before I go into wise or stupid, I just want to stand still a minute and say, what is wise? And I love this slide, man in the room. The Greek and the Romans decided that wisdom god was a woman. But to start back of what is wise or stupid, I take these two images. The first one is actually a child, and you say, very intelligent child. You're not going to say a wise child. The other one is an old man, and often it's a wise old man. You won't say it's a very intelligent old man. It's not even in our way of speaking. Now, this is about intelligence and wisdom being something very different. And the example I take here is, we all know a tomato is a fruit, but none of us is going to put a tomato in a fruit salad. And that is actually because we have experience. We have experience that it doesn't match. And wisdom is something which is related to experience and intelligence. And the balance can be on different sides. You probably all have a grandmother who didn't study or whatever, but was extremely wise because she had a lot of experience. It's both matter. And so when we talk about wise groups or stupid groups, and I got the question just, can you get wisdom out of stupid groups from my neighbor in the room? And I said, yes, you can, if you ask them the right question, if you ask them a question about their experience. And then there is even more. There is different types of wisdom. Now, we all know, we're probably sitting here because you know Jeff Hose and Surowiecki, where the intelligence of crowds coming from. When I reflect on the experiences I give is actually in the field we work. So that's the slide you saw earlier on from Epi. It's the circles. I'm not going to talk here because we don't have experience in there and I know about it, but I think a lot of what I'm going to say is actually related to it, is this fantastic peer-to-peer knowledge capacity of collaboration. But I'm more talking about the sourcing, the extracting wisdom out of crowds. And there are three types of getting wisdom out of crowd: in, from, or of the crowd. And the difference is whether you use the experts in the crowd, whether you use the entire crowd, whether you're looking for insights or whether you're looking for data. And it's very important to distinguish between that, because depending on what that is, you're going to do different things. And the key success factors, I love the bee story, but I think I don't have the time. I will give it to you if you be in the workshop. But wisdom in the crowd is you're looking for experts, and the success is typical what Lego does. It's looking for users. They are not intelligent, but they have experience. Yeah? And there's many other resources of looking for experts in the crowd. It could be also just networks of academia together. You need to find them, the right, and so there's a classification capacity. You need to motivate them, so there is an engagement capacity. You need to evaluate them. There is a whole funneling process in there, which is important. and avoid gaming. The wisdom from the crowd is this number stories. It's extracting data and aggregating it or working it. It can also be, as we just saw, the wisdom from the crowd is this the behavior, the gaming, cancer type of pain data. There is extremely important that you get the right numbers. It's extremely important that they have either access to information or experience, and that you do not bias the whole stuff. The final thing I'm going to go with, this is actually what we are mostly doing, is the wisdom of the crowd. And that is actually getting solutions, insights, by engaging the crowd in a connection, making it interact, making it dialogue. It's a pretty important thing that the condition here is that you make this crowd, you don't look at the crowd as atoms independently, you look at them as a whole system that is connected and actually together creates this. And there are two slides I feel important, is if crowds have same knowledge or different knowledge, or same experience or different experience, now same knowledge, same experience, wow, deep dialogue, you almost create an expert crowd. The further you go away, the further you risk to get into chit-chat room. And it's very important that you think, what am I sourcing? Am I sourcing wisdom out of experience? Am I sourcing wisdom out of knowledge? Where am I in this field? And what is actually the playing field I should, and which crowd should I get? The other one I really think, we spoke about a lot of these biases. A lot of them are to do with conformity, conforming to the group, conforming to the norm. And a lot of that, and that's a strong belief, and we played with both, strong belief I have is that to create a safe space for critical thinking and speaking up and evaluating with a critical mindset is actually anonymity. And I know it's seen as a weak word. People do not appreciate it, but I think it's important. I get to my last two slides, which says that in this case, you need to get the right crowds, the right questions and challenges, and that's extremely important. If you get the right crowd, but you ask them a stupid question, you get a stupid answer. And asking good questions to a crowd is a whole art. We spent years on building that art. We'll have a workshop this afternoon on it, but it's pretty important. I talked about the dialogue and the context, so the question, when are crowds stupid or smart? Here I am. There are a few things which are conditions. You have to have a clear view of what you want to get out of it. You have to have the right crowds. That's sheer. That's clear. You need to trigger it with the right questions or challenges or brief. And then these are not conditions. These are the ways you do it. You need to give them an enabling context and a right process and a right space for critical thinking. And for me, dialogue, interconnection is an extremely important part of that. Finally, get the right aggregation, because if you add it up or you have a bias in there, you lose. It may sound a bit technical, but it's really, I can have hundreds of stories on each of these lines where we experience by tuning it. It makes a real difference. And that's comes down to, and I see all this, we see all this crowdsourcing scene, there is a lot of wisdom in crowds. The whole thing is, it's not so obvious to get it out. And so that's why digital processes, that's why wisdom on how to challenge crowds, this is why wisdom on how to engage them, how to network them are extremely important. And it's not just something you do like that, it actually needs quite a lot of professionalism. That's my view.
Great.
Excellent. Thanks, Joanne.
Thank you, Joanne. Wonderful.